Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Trisha and today on the Aspiring Home Cook we're going to make a quick and easy Indian sweet called Besan Laddoos. This is one of the most popular sweets and there are so many ways that you can make these recipes, but this I find is one of the simplest ways to do it, and the laddus turned out just the way we at home like it. Now if you haven't heard of these before, besan is basically Hindi for chickpea flour and laddus are little balls just like you'd see truffles or bliss balls. Now before we move on to the recipe, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Once you do, click on that little bell icon right next to it so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. With that done, let's go on over to the kitchen and make these besan laddus. So for our besan laddus, we're going to use a cup and a half of chickpea flour or besan, 3/4 of a cup of ghee or clarified butter, 1 1/4 or 1 1/4 of a cup of sugar. This is just regular sugar. I'm going to just put this through a dry grinder and powder that down. You're also going to need 1/4 of a teaspoon of cardamom powder. Now I'm using these green cardamom pods. I'm just going to use enough to give me 1/4 of a teaspoon of powder. I'll show you how I do that too. I've got some almonds and some sultanas to top the laddus. You can use raisins, you can use cashew nuts, whatever you'd like to. You could also leave it just like that if you don't want to top it off. It's up to you. Now before we can start off with the recipe, I'll show you how I process my cardamom pods. All I'm going to do is just split the pod open, and what you get inside are these cardamom seeds. That's the stuff that you're looking for. You want to powder this, so you can check and see how much you get for roughly about 1/4 teaspoon's worth. And I'm going to use my mortar and pestle and grind this to a powder. So we're going to start off by melting our ghee down, especially if it's colder where you are and your ghee has solidified. So we're going to put in 3/4 of a cup of ghee into our pan. And you're going to wait for this to melt down. Now you're going to let this melt over low heat, and remember to keep your heat on a medium low at all times. You don't want this to get too hot at any point or your chickpea flour will burn. Once your ghee has melted, add in your chickpea flour and you're going to let this cook off for about 8 to 10 minutes on a low to a medium low heat, or till everything gets nice and nutty. You'll start smelling it. The fragrance will be hard to miss, and you'll notice a slight difference in the texture as well. I'll show you what it looks like at that stage. You don't want to leave this unattended. So in a couple of minutes, this is what it'll start looking like. We're going to continue to keep an eye on it. Make sure that anything that gets stuck onto the spoon or the back of the spoon, you kind of break down and let it continue roasting evenly. So this is about 8 minutes into the process. Now remember, wherever you're located, your chickpea flour may not behave in the same manner. A lot of these factors depend on the ambient temperature and then again the thickness of your pan, the heat level that it's on. So don't be alarmed if you see something a little different from this that happens while you're making your laddus. Now personally, when I've made this in the past, I've never had my chickpea flour clumping so early on in the process, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Use your spoon and you'll see that once it's had enough of heat, it starts changing texture. Now this is about 10 minutes into the process. I'm going to go in with another tablespoon or so of clarified butter or ghee, maybe 2 tablespoons worth. My chickpea flour or this mix has now had the time to absorb that extra ghee that we've put in. It's been on the stove for 2 minutes now since I last put that ghee and stirred that about. I can now smell the nuttiness in this chane ka atta or besan, and you should be able to as well. If you still can't smell it, continue going for a little while longer on some low heat and you'll get there eventually. Again, you're not looking for the color to change drastically, just a tiny bit. But most important is that smell. Okay, so about 2 minutes after adding that next round of ghee, I'm going to turn my heat off and take this off the heat. It's off the heat now on my counter, and I'm going to continue stirring it just for a little while because that pan is still hot and it's going to still continue that roasting process. Now you see how the texture has changed. It's reached a much more creamy state right now. So stir this for a little bit and you're going to leave this to cool down completely. Once it has cooled down, you can see that it's reached a slightly more set consistency. I'm going to add that 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom powder now. And I'm going to add the powdered sugar. I'm going to start with about half and mix that in thoroughly, and then I'm going to add a little more later. Now you don't want the sugar to be a very fine powder. Slightly coarse should be just fine. Alright, it's going to be a lot easier to mix this through with your hands than with a spoon. So I'm just going to get stuck right in there and mix everything together till you can't see that white powdery sugar anymore. Now almost all of that sugar has been worked into this dough. At this point, you can decide how sweet you'd like your Besan Laddoos to be. I'm going to add about half of the quantity that's left. I'll check for sweetness and add more sugar as required. And once everything has been incorporated, you're going to be left with a dough that looks like this. It's very malleable, really soft, and holds its shape really well. And now you're just going to leave this aside for about 15 minutes to rest. While kneading, all that body heat has warmed that dough, and this time just gives it an opportunity to cool down and get more manageable. Once the 15 minutes have passed, you're going to get in and portion out little walnut size portions like this. You can make them bigger if you'd like. I just find that this is just the right quantity and portion size for us. And you're going to roll this out into a little ball. Make sure there are no cracks on the surface, everything's nice and smooth, and you're going to top it off with some slivered almonds that we've chopped up earlier, or with some raisins. And you're going to continue with the process. It's important to make sure that no cracks are visible on the outer surface, and you're left with a smooth, shiny little ball of dough. This one's going to get a little raisin on top of it, and you're going to continue working through the rest of your dough like this. My laddoos are all ready, and I'm going to dig into one just for you. Like you can see, the consistency is a beautiful, nice, creamy consistency. It will have just the right amount of sweetness for you because you've controlled the sugar that you've added, with the subtle hint of cardamom going through it. And just like that, I've got a beautiful batch of Besan Laddoos ready to serve. These simply melt in your mouth and are so delicious, you're going to want to reach out for another one. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with family and friends that you think might enjoy it too. As always, I'll leave a link to the recipe in the description box below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to see you really soon with another delicious recipe. So till then, take care. Bye.